Welcome back to the She Sweet Society, the podcast where we celebrate the real, the raw, and the remarkable journeys of women who chose to bet on themselves. I'm your host, Dahlia. And if you caught the last episode, you already met Jennifer Harris, one half of the duo behind Mindful Retreats. Well, today you get the other half. And I have to say, these two women could not be more different and could not be more perfectly matched. Hattie Hawks is a former TV news anchor, an emotional awareness coach, and a woman who spent years showing up polished and composed on camera while quietly doing some of the deepest, hardest inner work of her life off screen. From the newsroom to a retreat in Arizona that cracked something wide open in her, to co-building a business centered on rest, safety, and real human connection, Hattie's story is about what it truly means to help others when you first had to learn how to help yourself. She and Jennifer describe themselves as soulmates. After hearing both of their stories back to back, I completely believe it. This one goes deep. Let's get into it. Anyway, Jennifer told me that you guys are business partners in this women's retreat thing. She really didn't tell me much past that about you.
Okay. Yeah.
So I am very interested to know how you both met and then your story. What have you been doing for your life? So possibly we'll start with your story because I'm sure you guys didn't meet at birth. Unless
Right.
unless you did, I'm not
No,
any
we
judgment.
joke that we're soulmates. So like perhaps we met before and this is just part of our journey together. And it was kind of like that though. Not like this big crazy moment when we met, but it was enough where we're like, what is going on? What's happening here? We just had a lot of things that were in common that made it really cool. So when I met Jennifer, I don't know if it was 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when we were going to a chamber event. It was an all women's event. And at the time, I was going and preparing to just talk about doing some of the emotional awareness coaching that I was doing. I was also doing different communications projects because my background was in TV news for the most part. I had also done PR. And so, like media strategy, different kinds of trainings on how to show up on camera and then just storytelling, all of that. So I was going in there and they sat me down at a table with a bunch of women in tech. and, and I'm like, all right, cool. Because it's a networking event. So you're just there to meet people. You never really know what's going to happen. And so I'm sitting next to Jennifer and at a full table and they're talking about what they do. And I could relate because I had done cybersecurity PR, but that was the closest thing I had to what they were talking about. And I was like, I actually, got really into emotions and feelings and how that works and the neuroscience and then our nervous system. Because my backstory was that, I was diagnosed with PTSD. Found out that I was also neurodivergent, which I didn't know before, which opens your eyes to a whole entire world. You have no realization of how it impacts you as you grow up, from being different and not realizing why. And so I was sitting there sharing all of that, and she's just kind of looking at me with this face like, who are you? And she starts talking about how her stepdaughter really talks about that stuff a lot, and she's also really interested in it. She was really into sound baths and all kinds of things that help us to relax. And then I started talking about red rocks because I had this moment several months before where I just kept feeling like I needed to go and see some red rocks. I'm like, I just need to go and be there. And then I told a friend and she told me, "Oh, I just signed up for a retreat in Arizona. I didn't think you would be able to come." And I was like, "Oh, darn, that's crazy. I would have loved to go."
Yeah.
And she texted me the next day and said, "Someone just dropped out. Like, are you coming?" And I said, "Obviously, like I have to go." And so I went and it was my first retreat experience. And if you know anything about PTSD, complex PTSD, like one of the cornerstone symptoms is the intense level of anxiety and the inability to relax.
Yes.
Your body forgets what it feels like to relax. I had no clue. I truly didn't. And when I went on this retreat, it was so eye opening and so emotional. And I had already started to open my eyes to understanding all these different things about how my brain and my body worked. I was reading so much, listening to all these podcasts, and it was just like a new world for me. But anyway, she is listening to me talk about red rocks, and she's just like, I love Arizona, and this is an idea that I had, and I have this picture on my wall of this. And it was just there was so much alignment there, that we just decided, we're friends now.
Yeah.
Um, and we're gonna meet up for coffee. And so we met for coffee a few times. And at first it was more of just like, okay, so what are you working on? What am I working on? How can I help you with this? And we would talk about, all of the emotion stuff with me and with her, because I love talking about it and love being able to help people with whatever's going on. Like, air everything out with me. I'm here for it. Um, but then after that, we really started talking about, let's work on this thing together. Like, we have some really solid ideas. And the idea that we had at first is different than the idea that we really started rolling with. I honestly think some of the ideas that we had will come back around, but Mindful Retreats was born after a few different meetings. And we have just been working on building it and spreading awareness ever since about like how this can help so many people. Jennifer we both have different reasons. Like, our why
Yeah.
is different.
I can tell just by honestly, when you first joined the call, I can tell you have very different energies that
Yes.
you bring into this space, which is complementary.
Yeah. We say we're the yin and the yang.
You really are.
And it doesn't, but you know what? When people are so different, the idea is that you wouldn't get along, but it just works. And I was telling some other friends about it too, and neither of us ever feel like we're doing enough, but our strengths are in different areas.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we're always good at being like, you're so great, oh, to the other person.
Cheering each
um
other on.
yeah, we try to, because life is a real challenge alongside this, and it makes it even more of a passion to integrate this kind of relaxation and resource into our culture,
Yeah.
because we just so desperately need it with so many things that are happening right now in the world.
We really do. Well, people like I don't want to bulk you, but someone like you doesn't just come about. I feel like very often. So can we go back to where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Philadelphia area, the metro area. Go Birds. You're raised as a Philly fan. You have absolutely no choice. And it's interesting because the culture, I mean, I grew up in it, so I didn't know any different until I moved away. And my personality is different than the culture. I never realized that I was just so different than the majority, but it was never a bad thing for me to be that way. I mean, I had my challenges, like, but I'm only aware of them now. I didn't know back then.
Yeah. In
You
hindsight.
right, you live and you learn. And so I was in TV news. I was really passionate about I just loved, at first, I just loved performing and doing things like that. And then I went to Temple, and they have a great journalism program. And I had a great journalism 101 teacher that was able to kind of give me more of a passion for journalism, because I didn't really have it at the time. I just watched the news regularly and thought, I could be that person. I can be a news anchor.
Yeah.
That looks like something that's potential for me. And So I went there and it opened my eyes, of course, even more to what the world was really like, which was nothing that I thought it was going to be. It's entirely different. Um, and I got a job right out of college, which was such a blessing. So many people have to look for so long, and you have to go to the middle of nowhere in order to get your first job. I only had to go to Winchester, Virginia. So that was 3 hours from where my parents were. And that was just like unheard of. And so it's not far from Washington, D.C. It was, however, a culture shock. And it was really hard. It was really hard to start that job, even after having a very challenging schooling and an incredible internship. I had an incredible internship with great mentors. I still had such a hard time emotionally.
Was it
And
the area, the people, the job?
I it was all of the things. It was all of the things. I was a kid still. Like, you get out of school and you're 22, you have to leave everything that you know behind. You don't make I think I made like $20 an hour. You don't make a lot of money. And you are thrust into a really adult world where you're holding a lot more responsibility than you realize because people are relying on you for their information and you don't have a great understanding of how the world works yet. You're just trying to figure it out.
What a weight.
And it was different even after being like I had a really culturally diverse upbringing. I had a lot of exposure to what um like insecurity looked like, financial insecurity. We were always okay, but I saw it all around me. And in Virginia, it was a little different. Like, it was a small town. It was really, it was pretty, it was cute. It was a different kind of culture. It was just, not what I was used to. And then I had to learn about how all of these systems worked, which I didn't know how they worked. And so at least for my job, the one thing that we do as reporters is we typically would go in and say, just talk to me like I'm in fifth grade because we didn't know. If you don't know anything, you need them to start from scratch. And that was really helpful for me in learning things that I could have never learned before.
Yeah.
Um, but that there was, I mean, I experienced so many different things there, like from like a level of trauma in learning who you can and can't trust. That was a totally different world. Um, Never realized that that would be such a huge learning experience for me, but it was. But then I developed. I got better at what I was doing. I got way more confident in what I was doing. And it took about a year and a half for that to happen. But I ultimately was grateful for the development within myself during that period. And then they shut down our station.
Oh,
So that was a shock. And we all had to go in different directions because there were no other stations that were super local. And I ended up going to Huntington, West Virginia, where I was at the NBC station there.
okay. I know Huntington.
Yeah, I honestly like I loved my people in West Virginia. They were so wonderful to me. Again, opened up to an entirely different world once again because everywhere you live is going to have such nuance to it. The things that people are used to, the way that they operate, their understanding of how the world works, everything that they've experienced growing up. And so it was more of a there was more crime there that we talked about. So my reporting style was different at first. Because I did a lot of human interest and storytelling before. That's because I had to. There wasn't a whole lot that happened in Virginia. In West Virginia, there was more. There was more that happened. And so, you learn how to develop stronger contacts. I learned, I was getting a little bit better with boundaries, although I didn't have a word for it then. And I really bonded with my coworkers, and I was able to go from morning reporter. I started as morning reporter and noon anchor. and then eventually transitioned into noon anchor and 4 p.m. anchor.
Wow.
And then I would sub in on the mornings because I still loved being there. And because they told me I had to, so I did.
Win-win for
There's
everybody.
that too. Um, but the 4 o'clock was entirely different. They started it from scratch, and so it was exciting to be able to be a part of that, like, growth, and we started doing things different, and it was an opportunity to bring more happy stuff to the community because they're so used to all of the, if it bleeds, it leads, all of the stuff and the chaos that was happening. Um, and I'm looking at your face. That's a saying in
I've
news.
never heard that if it bleeds, it
That
leads.
was it. Unfortunately, that is a saying, and I think they veered away from that. Like, that's kind of a very, I mean, that's a really harsh way of saying it and kind of flippant,
No,
like as if you don't
no,
care.
I
I will say that
understand.
journalism cares, but
Yeah, it's just a quick way of saying,
yeah,
yeah,
I would say journalists are very, very caring and passionate about what they do. There's a darkness that they work with all the time. And like any career that deals with the darkness, like there is a level of protection that you put upon yourself when you're
yeah,
doing it.
yeah.
And sometimes that mindset is what helps you to keep getting through knowing everything that's happening. But after
When
West Virginia,
when did your spiritualness come in?
oh,
You're
I
throwing a
know.
lot of terms I'm recognizing, and I'm like, wait a minute. There's no way that hasn't been a part of this whole thing, but maybe you didn't
Right.
have the names until later. But sorry,
Yes.
go ahead.
It
What happened after West Virginia?
100% that came in the last several years.
Oh,
So
okay.
I left West Virginia because I was getting married.
Oh,
And my ex-husband now, he was from Columbus. And so Columbus was a likely next step for me anyway. And we got married. I didn't have a job at the time. I had tried to get a job before moving there, but I just, for whatever reason, couldn't. And I emailed this news director and assistant news director that I had talked to before. I said, I'm here now. Are there any opportunities? And they were like, well, you can come in and freelance. And I just said, sure. And I went in on the first day and I did a story and I came back at the end of the day and they offered me a contract.
oh, look at that.
And so
Look at
I
that.
was like, oh, well, you also have a weekend anchor position open. That's what I would really like. And so then they let me fill in on that for, I think I did it for 1 or 2 months. And then I was offered that position. And so I was weekend anchor. And I worked the morning shift the entire time that I was there. And I ended up being there for about 6 years, made wonderful friends who are just awesome people. Some of them are still there. I got to tell really important stories, and the viewership and how kind people was so different than what a lot of people experience. People talk all the time about how people can be harsh critics, and they can. I dealt with that from time to time. But for the most part, everybody was just very warm and accepting. And the people that I did stories with were always very appreciative. And I think my spiritualness, it was always there. And I was always a very deeply feeling person. Like, I always wanted to be able to use whatever power I had in order to help others.
Yeah.
Um, but what I learned was also I had to help myself. And that was, you know,
It's the toughest
my
lesson. It's the toughest lesson.
it
It's so
is.
easy to for givers to give. It's in your
Yeah.
nature, but you forget to give to yourself first. Always, always, always. But usually something happens in your life to trigger that. Did
Yes.
something something had to have happened to trigger that.
So I realized that what I was experiencing in my marriage was less than okay.
Ah, okay.
And I just, everything that I had experienced up until that point, like, I've done a lot of therapy now. And The path to hell is paved with good intentions.
It's one of my favorites. That's
It
one of
is.
my favorites.
I never meant to hurt myself by like the path of destruction of self-abandonment. I didn't realize that that's what it was. But I ended up in a relationship that truly just did not serve me, and it got worse and worse. And then there were just things that I experienced that like were so detrimental to my sense of self that I knew I couldn't do it anymore. Like prayer had become a big thing for me. I was going to church. I remember looking at this poster on the wall in church that had this iceberg and it said go deeper, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, what does that even mean? Like I don't, what is that? And I just had this sense of like just think about me more. I'm like, okay. So I just start thinking about God more, and then I start praying more. And then like my perception starts to shift. Um, but the specific thing that I was praying for never happened. Like I saw beautiful things happen for me, but it like I wanted things to get better. I wanted like the lights to come on and everything to turn around and just be better, and I was going to be treated the right way. I was going to be supported. Like I was going to get the best co-parent, and it was all going to work out because it was going to be done together, but it was only being done by me.
Mhm.
And I said no more. And the I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was like a month or 2 out, and everything that had happened up until this point, I was like, "I cannot let them see this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let them look at this and think that this is okay." And that was the main reason. I also was like, "I don't think I'm gonna financially, survive this." Hindsight's 2020 there because that doesn't change, like, when you leave. So I left, and there were like it's kind of hard to talk about and to share some of these things because it didn't get better there. It got a lot harder.
Yeah.
And I had to rely on my faith a lot more. Um and I was able to just like keep my head above water and do research in order to figure out like what to expect was going to happen next, because I was trying to keep myself like calm and prepared and ready for what was going to happen. But nothing can prepare you
No.
for what ends up happening. And so I'll just go ahead and fast forward all the way till the last 2 years, and there were criminal court cases that happened. My ex-husband was ended up being convicted of felony telephone harassment, and so he went to prison for 11 months. And we had to go through the family court system during all of this time, and these were just like these were very deeply personal and challenging experiences where I couldn't just lean on my own understanding. Um, I was thankful to know that there were other people who were sharing their experiences online, and they were giving really helpful information just so that it could calm your nervous system.
Yeah.
Um, but like during this process, I was saying, okay, well, I'm not gonna repeat this again. I'm not gonna run into this because I recognize that I have something to do with this. Like these things may not have been my fault that they happened, but I have a responsibility now to change the patterns that led me in this direction in the first place.
Yeah.
And
You become
so
self-reflective. Like
yes,
what was it? At what mental state were you in?
right.
What brought you to want that
Right. Because, like, on the
for yourself?
outside, I was doing well. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. From the outside, nobody can see what's
yeah,
going on.
everyone's like, well, she's a TV news anchor. She should be pretty confident, and she should be this and she should be that. And at work, I felt more like that at work. But when I would go home, there was a real lack and wholeness there.
Yeah.
And I loved being a mom and being able to pour all of the love that I had into them, but I also wasn't really able to take care of myself fully. Like, I had been learning things, but I just hadn't quite been able to pull it all together. And so I read The Body Keeps the Score. I started listening.
That's a
I
good one.
know, it's so good. But then it made me realize, I was like, oh, okay. So I have these deep rooted patterns that have changed literally my brain. How it looks would look different than someone else's. I need to gain new neural pathways. I need to release all of this stored trauma and tension from my body. And so, like, learning about the mind body connection. And I've always been a determined person. So, whatever it was that I was determined to do, I carried out. And I was like, okay, now I'm determined for me. And I'm gonna help myself, even if that looks kind of crazy, because if I'm gonna keep going after this, I gotta like recharge. I've got to figure this out.
Yeah,
And
it's your
so
life.
yeah, exactly. And the systems around us don't always accommodate life.
Right.
And that has been my experience. And so I've just really been dedicated to doing that. And that has definitely grown my spirituality and my understanding of, why we're here, having a purpose, what matters most to me. And
You found
um
your light,
yeah,
which is it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. That is really amazing.
yeah. It's a fight to keep it, you
It's
know?
it's a fight to keep it, and like any light source can get dimmer and get brighter depending on its own surroundings. And it seems that where you are now, which of course your life is not, you're not over yet. You still have a whole other chapter you've got to write.
Yeah.
What do you see for yourself now?
Well, I'm in this really interesting space where things have kind of just I want to say they've opened up. I get stressed about it sometimes because there are so many different things that I want to accomplish, and yet I still have very young kids.
Yeah,
And so, like,
I can
I'm
relate.
it's the woman dilemma. Like, I'm out here, like, I want to spend every moment that I can with them and supporting them and giving them the best thing that life has to offer, which is different from what I feel like I experience. Like, I'm real passionate about education and like calming their nervous system and making sure that they are emotionally taken care of, which is a lot of work. And in that, like, I want to be able to spread awareness of trauma and all of these things so that, like, the people who are tasked with taking care of our kids can understand this as well.
Yeah,
um but I just Jen and I are so excited and incredibly grateful to be able to keep building mindful retreats. We've done the women's retreats where we're focusing on, getting women together, giving them the rest that they need, the encouragement that they need, and the community that we lack right now. And we also want to bring this to corporate environments because, and again, my why is different than hers. Uh,
what is
what
your
I
why?
Mine is definitely more centered on understanding of our different life experiences and brains and how we best show up at work. So working in a newsroom, you've got a bunch of really different people.
Yeah, bet.
And probably a lot of neurodivergent people, I would say. You've got a lot of creative, you've got big personalities. And but it can be a hard environment. And then she's been in an entirely different environment. I was in corporate America for maybe 2 years, and that was hard for me because I'm more of an expressive person and I just wasn't really in my right lane. I was also going through so much at the time. And that emotional burden made it so hard to access creativity or expanded thinking,
Yeah,
because if you know how the brain and the body work, if you don't feel safe, you don't have your prefrontal cortex. And I'm like, so I need to feel safe. And I didn't fully realize that that was what my problem was at the time. I didn't have the language for it. So I want workplaces to understand that, because certain levels of stress can just send you into a fight or flight response.
Yeah.
It's our bodies have really adapted to be more emotionally reactive than what they are intended to be. And so our communication with each other can trigger the nervous system easily. Our expectations, harsh words, like our environment really needs to get to a place where it is more emotionally safe and we will all benefit from it. We just have to be willing to put the work in. And I
Which
think,
starts with recognizing it.
right.
And I don't think they recognize it.
Right. There are so many organizations that, they run the way that they run and they're not going to. But there are so many places that, if they don't want to have a healthier environment, they at least want to understand how they're going to retain their people anymore.
That's a good point. Very good point.
And so, okay, so if you have these unmet needs that you can't figure out, then there's a good chance that there is an emotional element here that has gone missing. And it lots of things are rooted from my personal experience. I don't expect like a boss or a coworker to be a therapist, but being able to hold space and understand what's going on and the magnitude that that has in someone's life is incredibly impactful. Being able to have a level of patience, or just being willing to think outside of the box and get creative on how needs are met
Mhm.
within that environment, because a lot of us just don't want to change how we're doing things because we've done them a certain way for so long. um, but we're dealing with a lot of non-neurotypical people who haven't been even diagnosed yet. And and that group of people, we're seeing so many kids now who are being diagnosed. And so it just makes sense to me that we need to start pivoting now.
Yeah,
Like,
I could not agree more.
and so that's more of mine. And it's like, let's make these healthier environments so that people can work and so that they can actually use their intended gifts, um and bring more to the table than you realize. But that's an entirely different, like, that's a perception shift, that's a trust fall, that's a whole learning experience that, um, I have seen with certain organizations, and I'm really hoping that we see more of them.
Me too. I've seen it with some, and I'm hoping that we see it with more, but when we see it with more, that it's not just people who wanna say the coined phrases, but actually follow through with their intended actions. Because I see a lot of that too, where people know that's the right thing to say, so they say it, but they don't actually believe it or intend to uphold it, especially when times get tough, especially when they're not hitting certain numbers. They're real quick to spiral back into old habits, old behavior. So which again, that's a normal thing, a normal way to grow and change. It's going to ebb and flow. Just
Well,
hopefully it ebbs and flows in the right direction.
right. But that's where, like, the nervous system regulation and understanding how that works is helpful. It is a process. Like, it happens all the time. Like, you go back into a reactive state and then you have to bring yourself back, calm down.
Yeah,
And when you're able to do that, then you can think clearly and you figure it out. And we all work in such different ways. So just, um, not doing one man shows is also very helpful. Understanding that working on a team and sitting down and remaining curious about why something may work, very, like, incredibly important. I love your facial expressions. You're like,
sorry.
yes.
I'm like, I can't say, because if I say it, then I ruin the some of the recordings. But I'm like, yes, that's absolutely true. It's the fact that people don't always remain curious. They just want to be right. They don't want to have, they don't want to learn. And that's okay. Eventually it'll change. I have very much enjoyed my time with you. It's so funny. Every time I record with people, it's whoever I'm recording with, for some reason, it's like the right time. It's like you say things I know I need to hear as well, randomly. But as every episode goes, I tend to end them all the same, even though the whole episode is advice. What advice would you give to somebody listening to this right now?
I would say, um, that's I'm someone who is like, okay, well, how much time do you have? But it's my advice, honestly, just based off of what we were said, remain curious. Remain curious, but don't don't overthink it either.
Yeah.
Because um I, from my personal experience in remaining curious, it has always been helpful. But if I keep asking myself the same questions over and over again, that's not very helpful anymore. So, being curious with yourself and also with others, that's just going to be something that will help you but better understand, because people are going to show you who they are eventually. Um, and
Yeah.
sometimes we assume the wrong thing right away. Like, I see people who cut people out too quickly and they haven't given them a chance to fully understand. Um, and then sometimes there's you already know right away. You're like, okay, this is not going to work. But remaining curious is a way to not be judgmental of others or yourself, because that hurts your body. It keeps you soft. It's healthier for you. And it's gonna help improve the things around you if you can just be curious about it.
Love it. Love, love, love it. Hattie, thank you for your honesty, your heart, and for being willing to share the parts of your story that so many women are living, but not yet saying out loud. This one mattered. If today's conversation resonated with you, please reach out to Hattie and check out Mindful Retreats. Whether you're craving a personal day of rest and reconnection, or you're thinking about what your team or organization truly needs, they are building something that the world is ready for. All the details are in the show notes. And here's what I want you to walk away with today. Stay curious about yourself, about others, about why you show up the way you do. Hattie reminded us that curiosity keeps you softer, it keeps you open, and keeps you from being your own harshest critic. We could all use a little more of that. If this episode moved you, share it. Send it to a woman who has it all together on the outside and is quietly searching for something more on the inside. Leave us a review. Tell a friend. This community is built one share at a time, and I'm so grateful for every one of you. If you haven't listened to Jennifer's episode yet, go back. These two stories are better together. Remember, your life is your story to tell. Why not make it extraordinary? Till next time, I'm Dahlia. Thanks for being here.